During this session, we are going to give you a demo on how to publish digital objects in Knowledge Junction, the open evidence community curated by EFSA. We will use the first half an hour of the webinar to give you a presentation. You can start asking written questions already during the demonstration in the chat area. These will be answered either orally or by writing, depending on the volume of the questions.
So let's start. What is the Knowledge Junction, Barnabas?
First of all, let's start with the definition of repository. A repository is a place where information, for example, documents, datasets, reports, can be stored. Now, some words about the Knowledge Junction. This is a curated community by EFSA where different kinds of digital objects can be uploaded and published. This community is hosted in the Zenodo platform.
Okay. So could you tell us a bit more about the Zenodo platform? Is anyone else using it?
Sure. Zenodo repository is particularly good for publishing as it is open to everybody and user-friendly. It has been developed by CERN and allows users to easily access its content and track citation. This platform also used by OpenAir, and which provides information about deliverables related to EU-funded research projects.
So Zenodo is a great place for sharing scientific materials, data sets, models, all sorts of information that can help us support us in our scientific work. That sounds really exciting. And I believe Zenodo helps us to implement the FAIR principle so that things are both findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Can you tell us how that works?
Sure. So related to findability, the system automatically generates a digital object identifier, DOI. This is the link that uniquely identifies a digital resource and therefore allows users to track it and receive it even after a long time. The system is also accessible, means that it's an open platform and you can view and download content through a web browser. Related to interoperability, Zenodo uses doubling core metadata. So in order to retrieve and track digital objects correctly, we need a quality set of metadata, which are commonly defined as data on data, such as title, contributors, keywords, and subjects. The last principle is reuse, means that the license and the access rights are set.
Okay, that's great. So I guess we'll see more about those ideas about DOIs as we move into the demonstration.
Exactly.
But can anyone upload a file into our community?
Yes, however, the Zenodo has a curator.
And what does the curator do?
All evidence published on Knowledge Junction is curated. The curator checks metadata is complete, that the content relates to food and feed safety, and removes the inappropriate content. Now we are going to give you a live demonstration in order to show all of the functionalities of this repository. As I mentioned before, you will have an opportunity to ask written questions as the presentation proceeds. We have chosen this dataset, EFSA's Compendium of Botanicals, and we will fill in the dataset information together. The metadata that you provide in the Knowledge Junction must be concise and help users to find and understand the content.
Now, I'm already logged in because I just used my email address to register on the Zenodo platform, and now I'm able to upload content. But I guess, as you indicated before, you can browse and download the content without logging in. You just need to log in if you want to upload something. And this allows people to get in touch with you, I guess, if you upload some really interesting content. So what do we need to do first?
So after logging in, what we have done already, you can proceed by clicking on the new upload button.
Okay. So I need to click this green button here, new upload. Okay. That's great.
Now we are seeing the upload page, and we can start the publication of our file, which is a data set in our case. As you will see, it's important to save all of the modifications.
So that's this button here, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But it seems to be a bit grey at the moment. Is there something I need to do first?
First, we have to fill all of the mandatory data.
Ah, okay.
And
how can I see what's the how do I see what's the mandatory data?
All mandatory fields are marked as required.
Ah, okay. Like so, here it says required,
yeah,
so I need to click something there. Okay, that's great.
So the first step is to select the file we want to publish.
Okay, so I use this blue choose files.
Exactly. So if you click there,
yeah,
you can choose the files.
Okay, I want to add 2 files. So I've got 2 Excel files to upload. Is that okay? Can I do that?
Sure, you can upload multiple.
Okay, so I'm going to do that. Oh, okay, so they appear there. That's great.
After they appeared, we have to click on Start Upload button.
Okay.
In order to save the files.
So start upload. Okay. And is there any limit in terms of file size? Because one of mine was like 1 megabyte. Is there any constraints?
Exactly, but the limitation is way over this. So the limitation is 50 gigabyte, and it's also possible to submit multiple files as you have done it.
So if you had a really big file, for example, you could split it into smaller files maybe and upload it that way.
That's also a possibility.
Okay. That seems quite easy.
So after we can see the upload type, which is a data set in our case.
Okay, so we're going to select data set. Okay.
And the next mandatory field is the digital object identifier. Zenodo automatically generates a DOI. So this session can be ignored unless your file already have a DOI. In which case then you should enter the existing DOI of the file. In any case, you should not upload objects which have been previously published and are subject to copyright restriction.
Yeah, I guess that's quite important, making sure you don't upload files that have specific copyright restrictions.
Exactly. In our example, I believe this field empty, and we will therefore obtain a DOI once we've published the content.
So the Zenodo platform is able to automatically generate digital object identifiers for us, and I believe that's done through the DataSite registration facility.
Exactly, Jane.
Okay. So next up?
The next field what we have to fill in is the publication date.
Oh, okay.
By default, the system shows you today's date, but if the dataset was published already somewhere else, we should use the original date of the publication.
Okay, so in this case, this dataset was already in our web reporting system, wasn't it? And I think it was published on the 5th of July.
2016. Exactly.
Okay, so I put in the original publication date there. Okay.
After we have to provide a short title. In our case, it's EFSA's Compendium of Botanicals.
Okay, is that correct? Yep.
Yeah, that's correct. The next field is the authors.
Okay, so in this case, we're going to put that it's a European Food Safety Authority publication. So should I write like EFSA in capitals as an abbreviation, or should I put the full affiliation in?
In this case, we can use the EU Food Safety Almanac to check and confirm the organization names when possible.
Oh, it's got some quite handy spell checking as well. That's great. Okay, so we're going to go for the EFSA Food Safety Authority in full. And I put that in the affiliation as well, shall I? But if I wanted, for example, to publish individuals, so to acknowledge the authors of a content, could I do that too?
It's also possible, but in that case, we have to provide the surname first and after the forename.
Okay, so in this case, I would put Richardson, Jane, if it was mine, and then I would put my affiliation that I was working for EFSA. Is that correct? Okay, great. But if I want to get rid of something, I haven't made a mistake now, have I? I can just click this and it will delete.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, great.
So the next field is the description. In order to give a concise overview of the content of the file that we are going to publish, a short description is required. The text should include the objective or purpose for the creation of the evidence, the scope, the methodology or legislative requirements applied, the assumption, the potential uncertainties, and key conclusion as well.
Okay, so we've put in the objective of the database here, so we can see it's about naturally occurring substances that might have some concern for human health. And then we've tried to provide quite some details here about the type of data that's in here. So, for example, the botanical species was taken from the plant list database. So I guess it's important to try and provide plenty of details so that if somebody is interested in a particular piece of content in Knowledge Junction, they can have a good understanding of what that content is and decide how useful or relevant it is for them. I can see also you can do some quite elaborate formatting if you want to.
It's also possible.
Yeah. Okay. But does this always have to be in English?
The item you upload can be in the original language, but the short description should be in English.
Okay, I guess it makes it more easy for everyone to find content that way.
Exactly, that's the purpose.
Okay, great.
Now we can move to the next part, which is the keywords.
Okay.
So in order to help users to determine if the evidence is relevant to their area of research, we should provide accurate keywords. As you can see, Jane is using lowercase, what we have to do most of the time, except for scientific terminology.
Oh, she's not.
In our case, we have 5 keywords like botanicals, food supplements, hazard identification, compounds of concern, and the last one is adverse effect.
Adverse.
You're not typing.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so these are primarily to help people find related content, and I guess they're used a lot for searching, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, great. So we've got our keywords in. What about these additional notes? What do we need to do here?
The additional notes field is particularly important to provide information that can stimulate collaboration between community members working on similar topics. So first we have to provide the country.
Okay, so in this case it's EU,
exactly.
Because we're working on the European level.
The language.
So I'm going to put EN for English.
A format.
So these were 2 XLS files, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And email address.
And in this case, if anyone wanted to know anything, we would use the data collection at efsa.europa.eu. Okay. So
for the language and the country, we use the ISO standard format.
And the email address is really important, isn't it? Because this gives a way for people to make contact with people if they have any questions about the content. And I guess also, I mean, one of the purposes of the repository is to find collaborators, right? So if you saw a piece of content that might be really relevant for your work, then you could contact this person and find out if there was an opportunity to work together or share other information that you have.
Exactly.
And generally, I mean, this is very similar to the type of information that we have to provide when we were creating a standard document. So, for example, if we were wanted to publish in a scientific journal, this process is really very similar, isn't it? So it's quite straightforward, I think. Okay, what's next?
Now we can move to the next part, which is the license. For what? So normally we the access right is open access, and the license is Creative Commons Attribution 4.0.
Okay, so in this case we selected the 4.0, but there's still a requirement for attribution with this. So I guess what that means in practice is if you were to download and use this piece of content, you should acknowledge the people who originally created the item by using a citation. And I think we'll look at citations a little bit later on, won't we?
Exactly.
Okay, great.
The next part is the communities. Here we have to type Knowledge Junction. It's important to use capital K and J because the system is case sensitive.
Okay, so it's showing me now that I've typed in a community. But I guess you can publish in more than one community as well if you wanted. So if there was another related community that you were interested in, you can publish there as well.
Yeah, the system allows you to add more than one community.
But the community means that each one is under a different curator. So you would need to make sure that you meet the curation requirements of both communities, I
Exactly.
guess. Yeah. Okay.
Moving to related identifiers. This field is particularly useful if you wish to share published items related to our upload.
So in this case, we originally had we have the online report where the data was first published in July 2016. So we should link to that so that people can get to this easy browsing version. So let me find the URL so that we have the. So that's the URL that takes you to that report. So if I put that in here, correct?
Correct.
And then I need to select what type of relationship there is. So in this case,
in our case, is complied created by this upload.
Okay, great. And you can add as many of these as you like, I think. And certainly when we've been publishing content that was generated by EFSA, if it was linked to an EFSA output, such as an opinion or a guidance document, we've also tried to make sure to include that relation using the DOI of the content from the EFSA journal. And again, it's about giving people access to as much information as they can find to understand, for example, how the object was created and what sort of uses it's appropriate for.
So the next field, what we have to fill is the subjects.
Okay.
For this field, we have to use the same concepts as for the keywords. See point number 6 above. So in our case, we have 5 subjects. We can use these keywords, but we also have to classify the terms by using global agricultural concept scheme.
Okay. So could you tell us a bit more about the global agricultural concept scheme while I have a look?
Sure. So the global agricultural concept scheme is a set of terms related to agriculture in multiple languages for use in linked data. It comprises the core set of terms to the dictionary of the Food and Agricultural Organization, the CAB International, and the National Agricultural Library of the USA. So, and each subject must be uniquely identified. Yeah.
So I need to try and match my keywords if I can. Okay. So I see that there's a term botany, which might be a good match with botanicals.
With botanicals,
okay,
exactly.
That's great. So if I open this up, I can see a bit more. Okay, so this is the study origin of structure. So we have a definition. We think that's okay. That fits our concept. I can see that it's linked to narrower and more related concepts. And then I think it's actually translated in a whole range of other different languages, so that's really helpful. So in fact, people could search in Italian potentially using a kind of terminology list like this. And I need this, don't I, the URL, in order to link specifically to that topic. So I'll add a couple more. So what else?
We also have food supplements.
Okay, let me just take that one from there.
We have toxic substance.
Okay. Okay,
We also have chemical composition.
So perhaps we can talk a bit about what the difference is between subjects and keywords and what their primary purposes are.
The Global Agriculture Concept Scheme includes 15,000 terms. So basically it's not possible to find all of the keywords in a GEX. So actually the keywords giving us like a more concise definition.
Okay, so if there's a particular term that you want to link to your piece of content and it's not in the GACS, you can still put it in the keywords to be more precise. So, for example, if you have a species name that's not in the GACS, you can use that
as a keyword.
Okay. Now I can kind of see the save button. Does that mean that we're almost close to finishing?
Exactly. Now we can click on save.
Okay. So I'm going to do save. Save successfully. Well, that went well.
And after saving all of the modification, we can click on publish.
Okay. I mean, I guess also you can prepare a file, save it, and come back to it. You can find your uploads when you log back in again if you haven't published them yet. Is that correct? Okay. So shall we try publish and see if it works?
Yeah, just try it.
Okay, let's go. Okay, so it's telling me that it's going to be linked to a digital object identifier, which is one of the key functions of this repository, isn't it? That we get a DOI and things are then retrievable and persistent. So I'll go ahead and say I understand. Right? Okay.
Here it's important to highlight that if you are a submitter, for example, a EFSA focal point, and you are preparing a publication on behalf of an organization, you should contact the author to confirm the metadata that you are going to provide and inform them of the planned publication in an open repository.
Okay, so now we can see our published item, correct? This looks really nice. I guess you can also edit it if you feel like you've made a mistake in the description somewhere. You can change that.
It's possible to edit the description, for example.
That's reassuring. Okay.
So now we are seeing the title what we have provided.
Yeah.
Also the author.
Okay, and you see the affiliation when you hover over that. Yeah.
Also the short description we have provided.
Okay. Excellent. That looks great.
If you scroll a bit down more,
yep,
we have the additional note field.
Okay, and that's the contact address if anyone wants to find out more about this particular upload. So if you look at for example, this is, you will now be able to find, we'll have to accept this into the Knowledge Junction community because I'm also the curator, but today I'm being a data uploader. But that will be visible immediately after this session. And then if anyone has questions about this particular data set, they can send to data collection at EFSA, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
We also can see the two Excel files we attached.
Okay. And if I want to download one, I just click there, yeah? Okay, I can see it downloading in the bottom corner of my screen. So that's great.
If you go up again,
okay,
on the other side, we can see the publication date.
Yep.
We have provided the DOI as well. If you click on the DOI.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. So, for example, if I wanted to provide a link, a persistent link to this particular document, I could just copy this and put it in as a link, for example, into reports or into my website or linking to some other documents that cite this particular piece of material. That's really handy. And it seems you can also do it in HTML as well. That's most probably the best one for a website, I guess. Okay.
So we have the keywords here, the subjects, also the related identifiers.
Okay. So this is if somebody clicks on this, it will take them straight to the botanical summary report.
Exactly.
Okay, that's great. And then I've got my Creative Commons license, but that has the attribution part. Shall we maybe look at how we can do attribution?
Sure.
Okay. So I need to go here. So I need to select the type of citation I want, right?
can be Harvard in our case.
Okay, so we select Harvard Elsevier format. Okay, cool.
And we get the citation.
So included in the citation, there's the title, obviously, of the author, the year, the title of the object, and that all-important DOI. Because this is really the key to the whole open data, open access part, isn't it? Is having a DOI so people can find things, share things, and acknowledge things. So I could copy that, for example, and put it into my report if I needed to. Like that. Nice. Okay. What other features do we see?
We also can see the version if you go a bit
Okay,
more.
yep, version 1.
It's also possible to share this report via Twitter.
In fact, I can see quite a few social media options. So if I click on this one, I can tweet this data set to my followers. Not that they're numerous, but... Okay, that's great. It seems that there's quite a lot of other platforms here. So, for example, you can import into Mendeley if you're using that for managing your references. Site you like, we see. Facebook, if you want to publish some content and share it on Facebook. I think this allows you to print, which is quite useful. And I think if you click, you get into over 200 other forms of social media that you can share content with. So it's an excellent way to bring attention to items that you've created, but also gather comments and feedback from people who are maybe using your item, particularly in the area of development of models and code, which we have quite a few on this platform. You may want to publish your code, maybe somebody uses it and gives you some feedback, and you decide to modify it based on that feedback, and then you can use versioning and put up a new updated versioning. So the platform makes it very easy to manage communication about your content.
And one more feature we would like to share is it's also possible to export
yes.
the content. So for example, we can show them the JSON.
Okay. Okay, so that's our metadata there in JSON format. And I guess this is really useful for data scientists and people who want to use more machine readable processes to look at content, examine content, and draw new conclusions. Okay, that's great. And should we maybe have a look and see how those keywords can take us to related content?
Yeah, we could click on food supplement,
Shall
for
I try
example.
it? Let's see. Okay. Cool. Okay.
And if you scroll down, you can see that it's possible to do a restriction in our search.
Okay. So if I was interested in food supplement reports from Spain, I could click here, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And that gives us 5
The
documents.
5 documents.
And then just clicking here, I can go in and see the report of the Scientific Committee of the Spanish Agency for Consumer Affairs, Food Safety and Nutrition, so ECOSAN. This is one of their reports. And we can see, there we go, the report is there already. You can view it, and again, you can download it. And just as with all the other content, oh, yeah. We get a citation for this one. Okay, so I think that was quite a good tour of the repository, and I think it's hopefully seemed reasonably straightforward. And in a second, I think we will start to open for questions. We'll just need to wait 1 second while they load up the questions. We're going to try and answer some of the questions orally, and I can see already that Sergio, Ivana and Stelianos are also working very hard in the other room, typing written responses to you. So we just see if we can get the questions up on our side as well. But overall, Barnabas, Obviously, you've been a trainee, and you've been learning this over the last 6 months or so. And have you found it quite an easy process?
I think the platform itself is very easy to use. We also have a win.
Yes. Ah, good point. Let's have a look at that, shall we?
Helps a lot on creation.
So if I go to Knowledge Junction here, back at the home area, maybe I need to go to the communities. So if I type Knowledge Junction now and go there. Okay, so if I view Knowledge Junction, maybe it's at the bottom here. Okay, so here's the little introduction about what the community is about. And in the curation policy, that's right, we have the published win. I think this has already been circulated to some people. But for those who haven't seen the instructions, you can just click on this link here, and it should take you to the instructions. And basically, it's just a summary of all the things that we've talked about today, isn't it? So what is Knowledge Junction? And it gives examples of how you might want to import your metadata. Yeah, that's a good point. So that's really useful for anyone who wants to use the repository and wants a bit of information about how to go about that. And from your perspective, Barnabas, what do you think are the benefits of using these new open access repositories?
I think like this platform like Zenodo helps everybody to have easy access for scientific data sets, for example.
Yeah. But it also helps a bit with transparency, reproducibility,
exactly,
isn't it?
Like the FAIR principles we have mentioned in the beginning.
Exactly. So Knowledge Junction is really foreseen as a repository where you can share things that people might find useful when they're starting some work in the food and feed safety area. Because I think one of the really nice things about these open communities is improving reuse of content. I think that's why OpenAIRE is also making use of this platform. Okay, I think that we might just be getting some questions up now. Aha, here we go. Great, thanks very much. Our technician was just helping us to get the questions up there. So can you see those, Barnabas? Are you all right?
So the first question is, will there be a description template for download somewhere to allow users to submit a somewhat uniform looking description?
That's an interesting idea. Yeah, at the moment we give some general guidelines about how to create a description, but we haven't defined a specific format. I think actually our colleagues who are working on publishing protocols are looking into that. But I guess to some extent those templates might be dependent on the type of item that is uploaded. So perhaps the information that you would provide for models on code would be different to the information that you might provide for a data set. But we'll definitely take that as a recommendation, Jacob. It's a really good idea.
We also received a question about what if only the publication year is known. Is it possible to enter only the year?
Yes, I believe it is. I think you can just enter the year.
We also received a question asking about for national outputs, for example, scientific opinions. Do we put the keyword, the name of the country?
Yeah, that's a really important point, isn't it? So if we just go to back to Knowledge Junction and search, if we put this as a keyword, exactly, we can identify all the content that has been generated, for example, by France. So here we see also some other work. But if we look at this one here, I think we should see, Bulgaria. Let's see if I can find one that's from France. We have quite a lot of people who are also referencing France. How do we have the French content in there? I know, that's a data set. But yeah, I'll try and, not a brilliant demonstration there, but yes, it's really important to put the country into the keywords so that we can find them. Perhaps if I use a country where they have slightly less publications, I think Estonia's only got a few, it would be perhaps a little bit clearer. So if I type in Estonia, for example, we can see we've got 6 publications, and if I click here, you can see that Estonia is in the keywords. So this helps us to quickly find, if you're looking for content from a specific country, this is a really easy way to find them.
The next question is about the file format. So is it necessary to define the format in the additional field, or the system is able to recognize the type of the format?
Yeah, you're quite correct there. In fact, if we look, when you go to the download area, you can see, for example, it's a PDF file. We started doing this, putting it early on in the additional notes, in particular where we were working on publishing code for modelling, because we felt it might be important for people to know whether they have licenses. Some of the content that's published has been done with a particular type of software, so for example, SAS or MATLAB, and or @RISK, and we wanted to put early on the type of software you might need if you wanted to use that item. So yes, it's a little bit belts and braces, shall we say, but it can be useful.
We also received a question about whether it is possible to set an alert to receive a notification if there is a new upload on Knowledge Junction.
That's a good question. I'm not sure currently through the platform that you can do that. But one of the next features that we're working on is to create a kind of newsletter report that will run in a platform a bit like this one, where we have the botanical summary report. So to make a kind of Knowledge Junction newsletter, and in there we'll try and focus on new content and perhaps even highlight new content that would be particularly interesting for people.
The next question about GACS, whether GACS Beta is a part of Knowledge Junction or not.
No, GACS Beta isn't a part of Knowledge Junction. It was developed, as Barnabas explained, by 3 big organisations in agricultural terminology. It's still a beta version, but we found it very useful for defining keywords. It seemed to have sufficient scope and well matched to our domain, which is food and feed safety. And we found it very useful, and we hope that it's further supported. But it's not specifically linked to Knowledge Junction. It's a separate piece of work that's been led predominantly by the FAO.
The next question, if everyone is going to upload information data, who is going to verify the quality of the information?
Okay, now this is a good point. So in terms of what we offer at the curation level, we're predominantly focusing on making sure that the metadata is of a high quality. Because without high quality metadata, it can be hard for people to find the correct content. EFSA has published recently a document on how to use evidence, and you'll find it on the EFSA journal, and I think it's a really nice read because it explains about how we should use evidence. But what it emphasises is that what we need to do first is define clearly the question of why we want to use a piece of evidence, and then we can do an assessment of the relevance and reliability of that piece of information. And being as this is a broad community to collect information from, the many domains that EFSA covers in terms of food and feed safety, it would be difficult to assess relevance and reliability at the point of upload. But I do recommend that you take a look at the EFSA report, and we can also maybe put that into the document links at the end of the web conference.
Can you help me with the next question, because I can't see the entire question.
I have a general question related to Zenodo sharing platform and how EFSA links to it. I see on the website that it is powered by CERN. Yeah, I guess this is what we were trying to explain, that Knowledge Junction is a community that runs on the Zenodo platform. So Zenodo is a research sharing platform that was created by CERN. It is also used by OpenAir, which is the new way of sharing all of the research deliverables undertaken under EU funding, and we're just a small community on there. So the data itself is stored at the CERN data center, but being as the EU is already using it, we felt confident that this was an appropriate choice. And in fact, the Commission has actually provided funding to develop Zenodo to make it as a platform for research sharing.
The next question is that, is it possible to track who uses the file we uploaded?
Now that's an interesting question. The primary mechanism is by using citation. So, for example, if people cite using this DOI, there are quite a wide range of ways to track things. But also the platform itself does let you do some tracking of reuse. So I'm just going to use an example that I know. So recently, EFSA published the food additives intake model. And as you can see, the platform also supports Altmetrics, which is a way of tracking reuse via DOIs. And in this case, you can see that this model has been tweeted 8 times. And you can actually click for more details. So you do get the opportunity to track your reuse, but obviously it's not a complete reuse tracker. And because you don't need to register to view or download content, we can't, for example, tell you everyone who's downloaded the content.
The next question is, since when EFSA is using this platform?
Okay, so we've been using Knowledge Junction as a community since the beginning of 2016. We've been using it to try and target some of our house cleaning activities. So the first thing we did was we knew that we had a lot of models and code. If I click on software, maybe we can, if I just do a search on software, we can maybe look at that. So we had a lot of code and models and other coded objects, but they were really, some of them were published on our websites, some of them were linked to journal articles, but we didn't really have a comprehensive overview. So we started to put them into Knowledge Junction, in particular to get this DOI so that they could become persistent and citable objects. So at the moment you can see that we've got 31 pieces of software. Then we started the same process with datasets. So I think we have over 20 different datasets, is it now,
exactly.
Barnabas? Yeah. And then also the latest work that we've been doing is the information exchange platform, which was previously a closed repository where member states were able to share opinions, guidance documents, strategic planning with other member states, so that they could easily find work done by others. And that's now been migrated into the Knowledge Junction community as well. So we have over 1,000 reports provided by the various member state competent authorities and related organisations.
Next question is, are there going to be any reviewers for the content of the uploads documents, whether the content is relevant or not?
Yeah, again, I guess this is the similar question. I mean, we would certainly, if we saw an unusual file type or something that we thought might be nuisance content, then we would not allow that into the community. But as we said, we primarily believe that the best way to assess for quality is to define your specific question and then identify content that would be relevant and reliable for use for that question.
We also got a comment saying that the newsletter is a good idea, and do we have any idea about its frequency?
When we get the first one going, I think we'll maybe have more idea about the frequency. I think we might try and run it so some parts update automatically and then we add new content. But it's very much a work in development at the moment for us. So we'll let you know as soon as that is operational.
And the next question is, who is choosing which data should be uploaded?
I guess the agreement to publish a piece of data primarily should come from the people who created or generated that data. So in the case of the datasets that EFSA has put on here, primarily the datasets that we've released so far are ones that we received under grants and procurement. So we had quite some activities where we had asked organisations to support us in collecting data. And then we contacted the data providers and explained that we were going to make the data available on Knowledge Junction. So we always make sure that people who generated content know that it's going to go onto an open platform. And we currently also have a working group which is looking at working to see how we could make some of the other data that we hold publicly available, but which is the content of the member states, and that's an ongoing activity.
I think that was no. The system is refreshing.
Okay.
The next question is, I don't see any anymore.
Well, maybe it looks like we've answered most of the critical questions. So I think we'd like to say thank you very much for joining us today in this webinar. I hope that it's provided you with some of the information you need to know when you're thinking about using Knowledge Junction. I hope that we'll see content from at least a large majority of you who've joined today. Sharing information for reuse is a real driver for good, innovative and reproducible science. So we really encourage you, if you have content you want to share, please put it up in Knowledge Junction. If you have any questions, please contact EFSA and we will give further advice. And we really look forward to seeing your content. Thank you for joining us, and thank you very much to Barnabas, I think, who's done an amazing job. He's been a great support as a trainee on this project, and I think he really did a great job of showing us how to use Knowledge Junction.
Thank you for your attention.
You can still write if you haven't had your question answered yet. The written question stays open a little bit longer. Thank you.